Welcome to the Modern Classrooms Project podcast. Each week, we bring you discussions with educators on how they use blended, self-paced, and mastery-based learning to better serve their students. We believe teachers learn best from each other, so this is our way of lifting up the voices of leaders and innovators in our community. This is the Modern Classrooms Project podcast. Hello and welcome to the Modern Classrooms Project podcast. My name is Zach Diamond, and I'm a high school media production teacher in Washington, D.C., and a Modern Classrooms implementer. And today, I'm joined by Hui Couch, a high school math teacher in Louisville, Kentucky, and a Modern Classrooms mentor and DMCE. Welcome, Hui. It's so great to have you on the podcast.
Hello. Glad to be here.
I am super excited to have you. And thank you so much for coming on. Today, we're going to talk about presenting on math. I understand that you have done some presenting on math for Modern Classrooms, so I'm excited to get into that. But before we get started, can you tell us a little bit more about who you are and how you started your Modern Classrooms journey?
Hi, my name is Hui Couch, and I teach algebra in Louisville, Kentucky. I was born, educated, and started my teaching career in China. I came to work in the United States as a Chinese teacher in 2012. I got my master's in Liberty University here and began to teach math. Currently, I'm working on my EDS in University of Louisville. And I first learned about the Modern Classroom projects actually from my principal, an innovative and supportive leader. She shared information about MCP through email and encouraged all the teachers in our school to explore it. After I did some research online, I realized the MCP model was exactly what I had been looking for. Students take ownership of their learning, move at their own pace, and focus on true mastery. Without hesitation, I signed up for the training and began implementing it in my classroom. The training was amazing. It really helped me understand what MCP is all about and what it means, why it matters, and most importantly, how to actually use it to meet every student's needs in the classroom.
Yeah.
It wasn't theory, It gave me clear practical steps to get started, like how to design a MCP lesson, how to create my instructional videos, how to use a pacing tracker to track a student's progress, and even how to motivate students to learn at their own pace, including providing you with useful technology tools. There were just so many great strategies and useful technology tools. They were just help you make it possible to help set up a modern classroom right away. This actually is my third year of implementing MCP in my classroom. In the first year, what I loved most was seeing how students responded. They started taking ownership of their learning, moving at the pace that worked best for them, and building confidence as they mastered each skill. It was just so exciting to watch them feel proud of themselves. This year, I joined a one-year math fellowship program, so what we call the mentorship program now. During that time, I worked closely with my coach from MCP, and her name is Kaya. She was incredible, very supportive, very experienced.
That's great.
She always gave me thoughtful feedback and encouragement during our monthly coaching course. I kind of looking forward to it every month. That experience really strengthened my MCP practice.
Yeah.
So now it's my third year of implementing MCP. I have the privilege of working as a mentor myself. I feel honored to support other educators just like me on their MCP journey.
That's fantastic. I was writing things down as you were talking. I mean, there's so much that I want to respond to, but we had an episode of this podcast earlier in this season about the relationship between the mentee and the mentor, and something that you said definitely came across in that episode too. Like the frequency of the meetings is so important, right? And having someone to bounce ideas off of and talk to. Yeah. And I think it's so cool that you heard about modern classrooms from your principal. She does sound innovative. I think like it's great to hear that leaders, and we already knew this, right? We've had many of them on the podcast, but leaders around the country are introducing their staffers, their teachers to modern classrooms. That's so fantastic.
That is really important. Yes.
Yes, because it also means that you have the support from your leaders.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's awesome. And something else that you said that I think is really cool about the training was that it wasn't just theory. It was like, this is what you can do, right? I think a lot of times professional development is so like, it's so high level. It's so up in the sky, right? Like we work in classrooms, we work with kids, and it's messy and it's complicated, and it's really nice to have a training that I feel like I felt this way when I took the training too. Like I understand how I can actually do this. Like I understand what I'm supposed to actually do.
We got just those so wonderful strategies and, technology tools, everything step by step, get you prepared.
Yeah, 100%. It's a super solid training. Obviously, here on the MCP podcast, I strongly recommend that folks check it out. Links are in the show notes. Okay, so can you share a little bit about the before and after of your classroom? What were some of the key challenges that you faced in a traditional teaching model? And, you mentioned that this model was kind of exactly what you had wanted. So what inspired you then to make such a significant change to a self-paced, mastery-based blended approach?
Sure. First, I want to give you a little background. So all my students are multilingual learners. They are still learning English, and because they come from so many different educational backgrounds, so many of them have gaps, not just in math content, but also in language. So they all learn best when they have more personal attention, either in small group or one-on-one with me. That's always they prefer. Everybody prefers this. But before I started using MCP in my class, I actually really struggled to make that happen. I just could not find enough time to give every student the support they needed. The students who already had a stronger foundation in math would finish all the questions quickly, and then they would get bored waiting for anyone else to catch up. That often just led to interruptions. The students who needed more time just felt discouraged when they saw other students finishing ahead of them. They just lost confidence, and sometimes that even they just stopped trying. That often caused disruptions too. It was especially challenging for students with interrupted educational backgrounds. I remember I had one student in particular. She often put her head down and slept during my instruction in my class. At first, I thought she was just being disengaged, but when I talked to her, she told me she didn't understand what I'm teaching, what I said. So I just feel like, this just broke my heart, because she had only received schooling up through the second grade. So I know, she wasn't being lazy. She was just overwhelmed. I wish I could have more time to help her fill in more gaps at that time. But sometimes I just could not find that time.
Of course.
There.
You're a teacher. You have a whole other classroom of kids to attend to as well.
Yes. All the students there, like 25 to 30 students in a class. So we just could not find that time to help only her at that time. So another difficult situation was when students were absent. If they missed a day or two, they came back just completely lost. Many of them just felt overwhelmed and some just give up, That's really hard.
Yeah.
So for me, I really felt a lot of pressure as a teacher at that time. Honestly, I wasn't feeling successful because no matter how hard I tried, I just could not give every student exactly what they needed within the same lesson. But after I started using MCP, everything changed. It has truly been a game changer for me and for my students too. With the MCP model, I have the flexibility to spend more time with the students who really need the extra support, whether it's like in a small group or one-on-one. For the students who are ready to move forward, they don't have to sit there and wait anymore. They just keep learning at their own pace. How excited.
Yeah, right.
I still remember my very first year implementing MCP. I had 2 students who turned their learning into a friendly competition. They were flying the lessons, 6 or 7 lessons ahead of the rest of the class, I remember. What amazed me was that they were not just working in school. They were so motivated that they kept working at home. Their parents even shared with me, said how excited they saw their kids pushing themselves so hard in math on their own at home.
Yeah, incredible.
That is really amazing. And here's the best part. Those 2 students did not just move ahead quickly, they truly mastered every single skill they have learned. They were not just racing, they were learning deeply and understood their learning. Both of them had improved by more than 20 points, I remember, from fall to winter in our district math map testing. I know that kind of growth is really hard to achieve, even in a short time, even in a normal classroom, especially for my MLs. And I was just so proud of them, not just for the scores, but for the motivation and the confidence they built in this process. So also for those students who really need more time in their learning, they don't feel that stress of trying to keep up with everyone else. They can move at a pace that works just for them. So if a student misses class, I encourage them to log into my Canvas, so on their Chromebook at home, to continue their learning at their convenient time. So this way they don't fall behind or get lost when they come back. So as a teacher, one of the biggest benefits is that I have more time to work one-on-one with the students who feel confused, overwhelmed, or who come in with interrupted learning backgrounds. So I can just sit beside them using visuals or manipulatives. Sometimes it's a hands-on activity, or just break the questions down step by step to help them understand the concept or the content, the questions. What I love most is how much my students enjoy the freedom of their learning. They have their ownership of their own learning. When they get ahead of pace, they are so excited. They quickly move their names forward on our public pacing tracker, and you can see how proud they are. So when they are a proficiency level of a 4 on a mastery check, they're just so excited. The joy on their faces is just incredible.
Yeah.
You can hear them say, yes. So with so much confidence, and it's just amazing. It lights up my day always. For me, the most rewarding part in MCP is watching my students grow, not only in math, but in their confidence and the independence of their learning. I think that's the most important. MCP hasn't just transformed my students' learning, it has transformed my teaching too. I feel more successful now, more enjoyable being a teacher, and honestly, more inspired in the classroom than I ever did before.
I mean, that's amazing. That's amazing. I think like you talked a lot about their excitement, right? And the joy on their faces. I
Yes.
think one of the biggest things about modern classrooms is that, like, yeah, it's funny. It's very cute, right? When they get into competitions with each other to like get ahead. But like, they're actually, like you said, they're actually learning the math. In my class, they're actually learning its audio production, right? And
Yeah.
they are excited not just to get ahead, but they're excited to learn,
To learn. Yes.
which I think is so important. It's like, it's it gives them the tools that they need to learn in a way that works for them, and it loosens up this part of their brain that I think is so restricted in some classrooms, where you jump through the hoops because it's what your teacher tells you to do, right? But
Hmm.
if you lay the materials out in a way that's more accessible to them, and that they can learn at their own pace, it allows them to really like get into the actual learning for its own sake and be like, oh, I'm really interested in why. I have a student who I thought of while you were describing your students who are in a competition. This student got so far ahead that I had run out of materials for him. He got ahead of me, right? And I was like, but you're doing everything really well. You're learning all the stuff. You're not racing through it, just like you said. Um, I ran out of material for him, but like, and I felt bad. Like he wants to learn, he wants to move on, he wants to learn more because he's interested in the content. It's so interesting. But I was thinking, like, before, what could I possibly have done for him? You know, those are the students that actually I feel the worst about when I can't serve their needs. The students who are behind, uh, we talk a lot about supporting students who are behind and who are unmotivated, but um, the kids who really are driven to learn, it's so good to have tools to be able to serve their needs too.
And also they feel so confident. That's really important in math class too.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, building that confidence. I know math is it can be a very contentious subject for students.
Easy give up. Yeah. Feel hard and disengaged and give up.
Exactly. Yeah. How many students talk like that? And so building that confidence is so important. Um, Okay, so let's talk about blended learning. Blended learning also requires a pretty major shift in teacher and student roles. And can you talk us through like a typical day in your classroom? How does it go with the videos? How do you manage your time and your attention to support students who, like you said, are at different points in their learning journey?
Yeah, in my class, the day always follows a clear structure that supports both math learning and language growth.
Okay.
So before class even starts, every day I display the agenda, learning targets, shout-outs for the great work for the previous day, and the due dates for the lesson, so students know exactly what to expect. Since they are still learning English, so I also post the language objectives along with the sentence terms always to help guide their language use during their discussion. So when students arrive, after a quick check-in, usually just a social emotional check-in, and then we begin with a whole group warm-up. Sometimes it's a think, ink, pair, share. What do you notice? What do you wonder? Which three go together? Those math talks from IM curriculum. Or an inquiry activity in small groups. That is also from IM activity. I usually introduce the task briefly by connecting it to the learning targets. To make sure every student can access the task, I often provide translations in different languages for each group and use visuals to clarify the concepts or math vocabulary. This way, every student, no matter their language level, can dive into the activity with confidence.
Yeah.
As the students work, I usually walk around the classroom asking questions to stretch their thinking, encouraging them to talk in English. You can hear a lot of Spanish or Kiamanda talking. So I just encourage them to discuss in English. So here's a sentence term, you can use it. And also I check their progress. I observe which students may need extra help, so later I can pull them into a small group for reteaching or just for clarification. So in their groups, students work together to discuss the questions, brainstorm ideas or strategies, solve problems. I usually assign a group leader to guide the discussion and make sure every student stays on task. I also assign a resource manager who supports the group by providing tools just like Google Translate or manipulatives if they're needed. Every student in the group is responsible for recording their work on their worksheet, and they can refer back to their guiding notes at any time. That's what they enjoy the part. After the group work, students check their answers against an instructional video about this activity I posted on Canvas, or with an answer key. So if they find mistakes, they are not allowed to just move on. They have to correct the wrong questions, answers, and talk through why their answer was wrong. So I usually set a timer to keep the discussion focused and productive. When the time is up, we regroup as a class to summarize what we have learned, what strategies you have used for this activity, so before transitioning to the next part of the lesson. Then I release students into their self-paced learning. During that time, they rotate through different stations. At the video and note-taking station, they watch an instructional video and take notes at their own pace. At the inquiry station, they work with a partner or in a small group on an inquiry-based task or practice problems together. And the mastery check station, they must complete a mastery check independently without any help to demonstrate what they have learned. So while students are working at these stations, I pour small groups or individuals to work with me. Sometimes it's reteaching a concept to fill in learning gaps. Sometimes it's just helping students who was absent catch up with the lesson. And sometimes just giving extra support to those who are struggling. So this blended and self-paced structure really just gives me the flexibility to meet students exactly where they are, instead of just pushing the whole class through the same lesson at the same pace. At the end of the class, we always come back together for reflection, so students share how they worked toward the learning targets. Or they can ask questions about anything they still feel confused about. I also give shout-outs to highlight their effort and celebrate their progress. That's the most exciting part for them. The routine really helps me balance my time and also makes sure every student feels just supported and challenged, no matter their pace or language level.
I love that. I love that. Like, I think it's a very common misconception about modern classrooms that it's like all self-paced all the time, and we just make these videos and toss our kids into the deep end, right? And say like, you have everything you need, go, right? I love how you open your class with a very much full group activity. And I love how you close the class with this sort of like little community get together to celebrate kids and have some time for reflection too. I think it really shows how an effective modern classroom kind of mixes all of it together. But really the crucial part is, like you said, having that time that you, an individual teacher, one person can check in with an individual student or maybe a small group of students to support them in the way that they need it. And, you know, something else that you said that I think is really important to highlight is how you translate the materials for them. We had a guest on the podcast, Miguel. It was in this season, a couple of episodes ago, about working with multilingual learners. And, you know, I think I asked him, like, do you translate these math concepts, or it wasn't math, but do you translate the academic concepts for students into their target language, or would that like quote unquote not count as learning? And like you said, I think like language can be a barrier to learning math. So why not just take down that barrier, right? If they understand the algebra concept, that's the point. And so if you can present that to them in language that they understand, and they can show you that they got it, it doesn't matter if they got it in English, right? I realize like there is an element of supporting them in their English language learning as well, but I think it's really interesting to hear that you translate the materials for them.
And also, I just translate like a Spanish, only one, because I want them to discuss about it. So they will be able to discuss, and they will be able to explain it. And also, I ask those students, especially the group leader, I said, you need to use English to explain. This is a way to really push them to learn, actually improve their English, and also understand the concept.
Yeah, like it's you achieve both, right?
Yes.
That's so awesome. That's so great. Okay, so let's move on to mastery-based learning. Assessments and grades can definitely be a challenge in a mastery-based model. You did mention that your students take their mastery checks independently. I'm interested to hear more about that. But how have you redesigned your grading and assessment system to reflect true mastery rather than just completion or effort? And what specific tools or strategies are you using to track student progress and ensure that they're meeting their learning goals?
In my district, we use the IM curriculum, so which is very hands-on and also very literacy focused. One of the features I really love is a cool-down activity at the end of each lesson. It works perfectly as a quick formative assessment. So I use it daily to see right away if my students understood the lesson. I also rely on those mastery checks about those cool-down activities from our amazing playbooks, our amazing MCP math team created, which just is awesome. Everything there. Each one comes in two versions, version A and version B. They are designed around a clear learning target in that lesson with self-evaluated rubrics. This makes it so easy for me to see where my students are and what are they still need to work on.
Yeah, I want to jump in real quick and just say those playbooks are awesome, and I will link them in the show notes.
Yeah, sure. Every teacher loves it, and I just love it. It helps us a lot. Yeah, sometimes to better support my MLs, I adapt the mastery checks by adding some visuals, include hands-on matching tasks. So I just change the task to match, and that's a question, or this is like the solutions. They can just match it up. This way, they don't have to, because of the language barriers, they can do it with confidence. Or just provide sentence terms so they can focus on showing their math thinking without being held back by language. So I always allow students to use their guiding notes while completing their mastery checks because I want them to focus on the process and their understanding, but they must complete them on their own. So I know it truly reflects their own thinking, not other people's. So if a student gets the right answer, but their reasoning is weak and not really clear, I will ask them to go back and refine the explanation, or sometimes just talk me through their thinking. They like to do that. So this way I know they truly understand the content they are learning and not just the completion. For students who struggle, I will have them review their guiding notes, do some extra practice problem, or join a small reteach group with me before they retake the mastery check using version B. That's what I usually do, the retake using version B. So what I love is how motivated most of students are to revise and try again. They really want to do that because they really want to reach a proficiency level of a 3 or 4 on our grading scale. So when they finally get there, just such exciting moment. You can see the pride on their faces. Some of them literally just jumped out of their seats they say, yes, I got it.
That's amazing.
Yeah, those moments just so powerful because you can tell they are not just learning math, they are building confidence in themselves as learners. For summative assessments, I use the end of unit tests, also from IM. I do make adjustments sometimes. I will remove or simplify a few questions if I think my students would feel overwhelmed with, and just make sure the test still measures their thinking, but not discourage them. Before the test, I do expect students to finish all of the required must-do assignments from that unit. That way, I know they already had enough practice. I always set a firm deadline for the test, not just a mastery checks. There are no retakes for end-of-unit assessments. This really helps keep accountability strong. So what I have noticed is that having that firm deadline and no retake policy really pushes my students to stay on track. They take the learning process more seriously, and it gives them a very concrete goal to work toward. It also helps them develop responsibility and time management skills that really go beyond math and carry over into the other parts of their learning.
Yeah, and I remember you were saying before how you talk about at the beginning or end of class the deadlines for things. So they know what's coming, right? They always know, like, I'm going to have to take this test and I'm not going to be able to retake it. So
sometimes the students just work at home and say, oh, this weekend, Friday, we're going to take a test. I have 2 lessons I haven't done yet. So they just work at home.
Right.
It's amazing.
Yeah, and that comes from you making it so clear for them and doing such a good job supporting them. And I like what you said about the formative assessment as well, which they can revise. And again, you talked about the motivation that they have to revise, which I think again speaks to that idea that they're motivated maybe partially by the grade, right? But also by the learning, right? By the actual concepts, wanting to understand. And I think that's just so fantastic. And that's where that joy comes from, right? It's authentic joy. It's not like, yay, I get an A, right? It's authentic, like I actually understood this and I didn't necessarily always think I could understand math this way.
Yes, especially they first got a 1 and they move up a 3 or 4. They're just so excited.
Yeah. And it sounds like you really hold them accountable to that understanding too, because even if they get the right answer and they can't explain how, you still have them go back.
Yeah, I remember one student, and when I said, no, you need to explain why you did this. And when he explained, I said, what do you think you get, a 3 or 4? He said, I think I get a 4 because I did tell you. And how did I solve this problem? I use what strategy? I think that's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
So yes, I said, yeah, you got a 4. So he was so excited.
Yeah, I love that. And like you have the standards and they want to do well. They hold themselves to the standards too. It's just that they don't necessarily know what the standards are if you don't hold a line on them, right? And so that's great. A lot of teachers worry about the logistics and classroom management in this kind of model. And I'm wondering, what are some of your most effective strategies for keeping students on track and motivated? It definitely sounds like we talked about keeping them accountable and they've definitely already sound motivated, but I'm curious to hear, like, if you could talk more about what you're doing for them, for those who might struggle with independent learning.
Sure. From my 3 years implementing the MCP model, I have learned that strong classroom management really comes down to building solid routines and setting clear expectations right from the very beginning of the school year. When students know exactly what to expect and what's expected of them, the classroom runs much more smoothly, and I can focus more on teaching instead of managing behavior. If I had to sum it up, I really focus on 3 key areas. First, I spend a lot of time modeling and practicing class routines, which I call Unit 0. Students learn exactly how to rotate between stations, where to get materials and turn in their work, how to ask for help, and how to update both their individual and public trackers. So we practice these routines over and over until they become automatic. So we practice that way students know exactly what to do without me having to constantly remind them. Second, I set very clear expectations for each learning station. At the video and note-taking station, students must wear headphones, follow along quietly, and take notes as they watch. I encourage them to pause or rewind the videos as needed and to use captions in their home language to better understand the content. In the inquiry and practice station, students are expected to work with a partner or group who have to be at the same pace, not like you are on lesson 3, you are on lesson 4. They have to be at the same pace at the same lesson and use a voice level too, so they don't distract others. At the mastery check station, the expectation is total independence with a voice level 0. I do allow my students to refer to their guiding notes if they need to, but all the work must be their own. Third, I train student helpers to take on leadership roles. This is my favorite. Also, the most powerful part of MCP in my class. I have an academic helper I call Math Coach, who supports peers with questions while I am busy. A material manager who keeps materials or the binders organized, and a tag guru who helps classmates to log on and Canvas or locate videos or just troubleshoot small tag issues. They even take responsibility for organizing my headphones. The rules not only keep the class running smoothly, but they also really empower students to be leaders and build responsibility. About asking questions, I use the question policy ask 3 before me. Before students come to me, they need to try revising their notes first, trying to figure it out by themselves, and then ask a peer for help or check another resource, Math Coach. If they still need help, they need to wait in my teacher waiting room, continue doing the work they are doing, and I will get to them as soon as I finish helping somebody else. Unless it's a true emergency, so I will go to them directly. This system really helps me manage my time effectively while keep the classroom running smoothly. So this is really important. About motivation, one of my most powerful tools is our public pacing tracker. So students just love moving their picture forward as they complete a lesson, and it creates a sense of excitement to just compete with each other.
Yeah.
So I also give daily shout-outs to recognize the students' effort and progress, which really motivates them to work harder. So on top of that, leadership roles also give more students a chance to shine their ability, building both their confidence and accountability. So my students just love it. Altogether, these strategies keep my students on track, help them stay motivated, and free me up to focus my energy where it matters most.
Yes, that's so huge and so important, right? Talking about supporting the individual kids that need it. I love that. I mean, it definitely sounds like your classroom is like a well-oiled machine. It sounds like it runs very functionally, you know? I remember when I was a very young teacher, I heard more experienced teachers talking about how important routines were. And I could never really like get my mind around what they meant. And I think that modern classrooms helped me to have routines, right? Like I didn't even know what the routines could be. I didn't have a concept of what the routines could be, right? But modern classrooms sort of provides a sort of base level of routine in that students begin by watching a video, or we do a class discussion or something, right? First, then they watch a video, then they do some practice, then they do a mastery check, and that involves smaller routines like finding headphones, putting the headphones away, finding the video on the LMS or whatever the case may be. And so like, yeah, like having the structure of modern classrooms, it allows those routines to really flourish. And I think you're absolutely right. Like it takes a little bit of work at the beginning of the year, but if you do that, it really pays off because later in the year, the class just runs. Like the kids just know what to do. They don't ask you I remember getting questions like, where can I find this lesson? And I'm like, it's on Google Classroom under this and under that. And it's just so much time spent explaining where to find stuff online, and now I learned that I need to post everything in the same place every time, right? And in the right order every time, and line up my tracker with it. And now the class just kind of runs,
That's absolutely true. And that's also, I want to mention the Ask 3 Before Me, that policy is super just helpful. I remember the first year, I really didn't know, get this policy firm. So all of my students ask me, teacher, I need help. Teacher, I need help.
Yeah.
Because
all their
hands
are in the air.
Yes. And then I began to just set this question policy firm. It's just really helpful. Students know how to ask questions. Students know, what to do when they have questions. So that is amazing for MCP, this model.
Totally. And I think that really goes to show that like every kid wants to succeed. Like the fact that they all want your attention they're showing you like, I want to do this right. I want you to help me to do this right. And when I was teaching traditionally, I couldn't help them all. I just didn't have the time. I didn't have the routines. I didn't have the time to check in with them. And when they're asking so much for help, yeah, like 30 kids asking one person for help is like unbelievably overwhelming.
Yes.
Right. And so having the tools lets us support them. But like it really shows that they want the help. They want to succeed. Every kid wants to succeed.
Yes. And also that's really, actually, I need to mention in this MCP model, the routines really improve the relationship between students and teachers too.
Absolutely. Yeah. 100%. Okay. So all this sounds incredible. And I want to talk about you presenting on your class and this model, and talking like why you wanted to share this. So describe your thought process behind wanting to present to other teachers in your district about the impact of the model, and tell us a little bit about what it was that you presented, and then like what kind of questions came from the participants and what ideas came out of that session. And I guess like, would you present again? Tell me more. How did it go?
Yeah, sure. I'm a big MCP lover. So because I truly believe this model shows what an effective classroom should look like. With MCP, every student has a chance to learn at their own pace using instructional videos and resources that are available to them anytime, anywhere. So for my multilingual learners, this has been especially powerful. I add multilingual captions to my videos so they can hear me teaching in English while also reading the captions in their home language. They can watch the videos as many times as they need to, pausing or rewinding when something isn't clear to them. This extra support really helps me build both their math skills and their English at the same time. So also, I encourage my students to watch a second video that I post right after the main instructional video. In this one, I intentionally turn off the captions and I call it a skill check video. These videos include embedded questions so students can pause, reflect, and check their understanding as they go. It's a way for them to really test themselves without relying on the captions. And it gives me a clearer picture of how well they have understood the concept on their own. So honestly, I cannot imagine teaching without the MCP model now.
Me neither.
Yeah, it has transferred not just how I teach, but also how my students learn.
Right.
They feel more independent, more confident. I think that's the really important part, confident and more supported. And that's exactly the kind of classroom I have always wanted. So that's really why I can see why I wanted to share my experience with other teachers. I wanted them to see how blended structure with self-paced learning can truly empower my students and to encourage more teachers to give it a try in their classroom. I had the opportunity to present at my district 2025 Innovative Academic Summit, which was such amazing, exciting experience. During my session, participants asked thoughtful questions like, what does the MCP model actually look like in practice? Why is it effective, you think? And how do you even begin implementing it? Those are so amazing questions. Actually, that's the questions I had at the beginning before I implemented MCP in my class. So instead of just telling them, I showed my students' work as examples and I wanted them to really feel it. I set up the session so that they could put on a student's hat and get to experience MCP the same way my students do. They rotated from through different parts of the structure, watched a short video I made, took guided notes, worked through a task just like my students, and even completed a mini mastery check. That hands-on perspective made a big difference. Afterwards, many teachers told me they really enjoyed the experience and could see right away how powerful the MCP model could be in their own classroom. So I think that's amazing. Yeah. The feedback I received after the session was positive. Many teachers told me they were very interested in trying MCP in their own classroom this year. And several even asked me for more information and resources so they could get started. It was just so exciting to see their motivation when they realized that this model could actually work for their students too, just like me. Mm-hmm. Of course, if I had the chance, I would absolutely present again because I want more teachers to learn about MCP and to actually see the kind of impact it can have on their students' learning, confidence, and independence. So sharing that possibility with other educators feel just like as rewarding as seeing it happen in my own classroom.
Totally. And I would imagine very validating to get that positive feedback too. You know, you mentioned like the participants were eager to ask you questions and respond to you and learn more about the model. I think because and you were saying this and I've said this and many folks on this podcast and in modern classrooms have said this, like, this is what I always wanted. I just never knew how.
Yeah.
Right. And so when folks are exposed to the model and the model is presented to them, they're like, oh. And so, yeah, like I'm not surprised that you had that positive feedback. And I love also the format of a modern classroom, right? For the training, right? For the presentation, for the session as well, because it helps to like ground it. Like you were saying at the very beginning of the podcast, it helps to ground it in what you're actually going to do, right? It's very practical. It's not theoretical. It shows those routines. It shows how this actually works, the mechanics of it, right? And that's when I took the training, it was like that. Actually, it was long before, well, not that long. It was the year before COVID, and it was still an in-person training. And it was structured like a modern classroom. Kareem was there, Rob was there, and there were about 15 of us just working through the modules at our own pace. And I was like, well, this is incredible. Because I taught music at the time, I was there with English teachers. TR was actually in my cohort. We were together. And we all had different questions because we all taught different subjects.
That's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. And so just like in a modern classroom where the students have different needs, we could all go up to the facilitator and ask our own unique individual questions. And it wasn't like interrupting the session, because it was self-paced work time. And so that hooked me. I was like, well, okay, I get it. I see the value in a personal way for me, and I can see how to apply this to my students as well. So I can only imagine that the participants loved it, and it sounds like the feedback was all really positive. So that's great.
Yes. I remember when I get in the training, I just experienced students. I feel like, oh, that's actually work this way. I feel excited. I think my students maybe, might be the same way I feel. That's just so powerful. Yeah.
Yeah, it really is. It really is empowering and powerful. So what tips would you give other teachers when it comes to presenting about their math classrooms? And what kind of support did you get to ensure that you felt successful in this process of presenting?
And my first tip for other teachers to share your real classroom stories. Don't just talk about strategies. Bring them to examples of what worked with your students and even the challenges you are faced with. That makes your presentation more authentic and relatable. And second, keep things simple and interactive. Give teachers the chance to step into the role of a student and actually experience what learning looks like in your modern classroom.
Yeah.
So when teachers can see it, touch it, and try it for themselves, they stay much more engaged and they live with a clearer picture of how it could work in their own classroom. And finally, I would say just be yourself. Your passion for teaching will come through naturally, and that energy is always what inspires others the most.
Totally.
As for support, I feel very fortunate. I had an opportunity to present at our district academic summit. This is the first summit, I feel really lucky. And the amazing MCP team, they backed me up with resources and guidelines. Tony, in particular, was incredible. She was always there with thoughtful advice and constant encouragement and a willingness to answer any question I had. So having that support system really just boosted my confidence and helped me feel successful throughout the presentation. First I said, oh no, I cannot do it. But later on, I feel just so great and confident to do this presentation.
I love that. And just like in a modern classroom, right? I love what you said about stories. I think you're absolutely right. It makes the session more relatable, and it shows we're all going through kind of the same thing. Teaching is hard, and you're not alone, right? It's good to hear that. But I would also say that sharing stories from your classroom again brings the idea of modern classrooms out of theory and into practice. It's like, I had this situation and this is how the model helped me to, if it was a problem, if it was a challenge, right? This is how the model helped me to address this challenge. Or if it was something really awesome, it was and this is how the model made this awesome thing happen. And that helps your participants sort of imagine how it could be in their classrooms. Obviously, you should be yourself, right? And tell your stories, but that connects with them and they can be like, oh, I could try that in my classroom because I just had a similar situation with my student. And so, yeah, sharing stories and being yourself. Yeah. Shout out for being authentic and genuine.
Yeah.
I love that.
And all together, I remember those participants, other teachers, they share a lot of great strategies too. And they say, what might I do better and use these strategies in my class? Even I remember there's actually a music teacher in my class, in my session. So not only math, there's one I think is a music teacher and a special ed teacher. And I think there were 3 or 4 different subjects in my session that time. We shared all different strategies, really useful, really powerful, kind of like it. It's great.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for that. This has been so fantastic. I love this like very detailed glimpse into your class. It sounds amazing. So Hui, what do you hope to see in the future and what goals do you have? I guess besides maybe presenting again, since you said you want to.
Yeah, sure. So in the future, I really hope to keep growing, not only as a teacher, but also as a learner, along with the MCP model for sure. One of my biggest goals is to keep improving how I support my students in the modern classroom so that every student of mine feels confident and successful in math. I also want to continue sharing the impact of master-based self-paced learning with more teachers because I have seen firsthand how powerful it can be, and I believe more classrooms can benefit from it. So another goal I have is to keep building stronger connections with families and the communities. I think that's another really important part. I really believe learning doesn't stop at the classroom door. It extends into students' homes, their families, and the world they live in. When families and schools work together, students feel supported on every side, most of all. So I want students to see math as meaningful, not just numbers on a page, but something connected to their lives. So I want them to carry the resilience and the confidence they have built in my modern classroom into their future. I think that's my main goal. No matter where their life takes them, they keep this, confidence and work as a resilient learner. That's really important.
Yeah, the confidence, like you've been saying, and that love of learning, right? That love of understanding and the desire to understand. And I agree too, fully, their families play a major role in that as well, in shaping that, almost like shaping that identity for them, right? A lover of learning, a lover of understanding. Maybe not algebra specifically, right? But like whatever it is that they do, they learn to love learning, right?
Yeah, I want to let you know, actually, their parents watch the instructional videos at home with their kids together. So that is so powerful.
Yes, totally.
Yeah.
It is. I think that it really goes to sort of shaping that mindset, right? Like I want to do well, and this is how I'm going to do well. And once you learn how to do well, you can, right? You just become a person who is driven like that. So amazing, Hui. Thank you so much. How can our listeners connect with you if they'd like to ask you more?
And my email is HUI. I link it here. So HUI,
I'll link it in the show notes.
Classroom. Yeah.
It's your Modern Classroom's email.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay. Well, thank you so much for all of this. This has been an incredible discussion and just like I said, a glimpse into your classroom. I was really happy to have you on, Hui. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening. Listeners, remember you can always email us at podcast@modernclassrooms.org, and you can find the links to topics and tools we discussed, as well as more info on this week's announcements and events in the show notes for this episode at podcast.modernclassrooms.org. We'll have this episode's recap and transcript uploaded to the Modern Classrooms blog on Friday, so be sure to check there or check back in the show notes for this episode if you'd like to access those. And if you enjoy our podcast and it's been helpful in supporting you to create a blended, self-paced, mastery-based learning environment, we would love if you could leave a review. That does help other folks find our podcast. And of course, you can always learn the essentials of our model if you want to go beyond the podcast through our free course at learn.modernclassrooms.org. And you can follow us on social media at modernclassproj. That's Proj. We are so appreciative of all the hard work you do for students and schools. Have a great week, and we'll be back next Sunday with another episode of the Modern Classrooms Project podcast.